we're going to do is we're going to look at that graph worksheet. So if you will have that one out, that's the one that we're going to look at first. And we're going to talk about the slope from a graph. Okay? So your slope is going to be your rate of change. Okay? So there are several different things we can call slope, and I would write this up here at the top. Slope is also called our rate of change. And our rate of change is going to be our change in y over our change in x. And some symbols that we use sometimes for that, if you see this triangle in math, like that, that is the Greek letter delta, and it means the change in. So sometimes you'll see me write triangle y, triangle x, which is the change in y over the change in x. So how much y changes over how much x changes. Another little thing that we use sometimes to talk about this is rise over run. If you rise, which direction are you going? Up, right? So rise is how much you go up, or it actually can be down also, but we won't overcomplicate it with two words there, so we just call it rise. And if you run, you're running back and forth, right? So that's left or right. Which makes sense because our y-axis is up or down, right? And our x-axis is across. So this is what we're going to do for these problems, okay? So we're going to pick 2 points on our graph, preferably where our graph hits grid lines. Now, this worksheet is taking some of the work out of it for you because they give you, let's see, let me do that. Well, I don't want to do that yet anyway. But they give you ones that they've already put the dots on the line, right? If you look on the back, no dots on the line. So you're going to have to find those points on your own. So they make it a little easier on the front, harder on the back. So, what we are doing here, let me zoom in. This is as big as possible here. Has everybody got this, about the slope down? Okay, there was an extra there. Alright, so, has everybody got this written down? Because I'm going to have to erase it for, okay. Alright, so, to look at what's happening here, we want to think, you can pick either dot. Okay, it doesn't matter, whichever one you want to start at. So I'm going to pick this bottom dot. And I want to know how to get from this dot to the other dot only by going up, down, left, or right. Okay, so it is rise over run, which is up or down over our left or right. So we will need to go up or down first. So if I'm going from here to the other dot, I have to go up how many? 1. So if I go up 1, up is our positive direction, so that is going to be a positive 1 that goes on top. And now that I'm right here, I've got to move to the right, how many? 2. And to the right is our positive direction, because on the x-axis your positives are over here, your negatives are over here. The y-axis, positives are here, negatives are here. So I get positive 2. So that would just be 1/2, would be my slope. the slope tells us how steep that line is, right? There are lots of places that you use slope in real life. If you are building a house, you need to know the pitch of the roof, right? So you need to know how steep that roof is going to be so that you know how to set it up. It's confusing, but pitch they do backwards. They do run over rise for pitch, which is kind of crazy. Like, I don't know why. It confuses me a little bit, but it's the same idea, right? If you are grading, like, for example, pretty soon they'll be grading off over here for the new gym, right? Moving a bunch of dirt. You've got to know how steep slopes are. This is something that my husband does a lot, because if you have a slope that is too steep, grass won't grow on it. All of the dirt is just going to eventually, like, slide down the hill. It ends up in the creek. It kills all the fish. It runs into people's yards. It makes a big mess. So that's like part of the things that he looks at because he does erosion control. So they talk about how steep those hills are to make sure that if it's not past like the specifications that you're supposed to have. Jada?
So if you go down, would it mean it's negative?
It does. If you go down, it's a negative, and left is also negative. So let's look at what it would look like. Let's pretend maybe I didn't do it this way. Let's say I started at the top one right here. Let me change colors. So let's pretend I started right here, right? I'm going to show you it doesn't matter which one you start at. Because if I was starting here, I'd have to go down one, right? So my rise would be negative one, all right, because I went down one. But then I would have to go to the left 2 right here, and to the left is also negative. So if I have negative over negative, what does that give me? It gives me a positive. So it doesn't matter which one you start with there. It will end up having the same sign in the end. Okay, questions? All right, so let's look at the second one here. We want to do our change in y over our change in x. Y is up or down. X is left or right. So, Vince, which dot do you want to pick? This one over here on the left side or the one down here at the bottom? All right, left side. So if I start right here, starting right here, I need to go up or down first. How much do I have to go up or down? Down 2. If I go down 2, what number should I use? Negative 2 since I went down. Then I have to go right 2. Is that going to be positive or negative when I go to the right? It's positive 2. So I've got negative 2 over 2. What is negative 2 over 2, Vince? What? Not 0. It's negative 1. So number divided by itself is 1, not 0. So you get a negative 1 there. So you have a slope of negative 1. Okay. Questions so far? Because I'm going to have to erase this. Make sure everybody's got it. Okay, let's do number 5. Number 5 is a little different. All right, so for number 5, Katie, which dot do you want to pick? The one on the left or one on the right? On the right, okay? So if we pick this dot right here, this one right here, I guess I should use a different color since these are red. Picking this dot right here, I need my change in y over my change in x. Y is up or down, rise, run is left or right. So, Katie, to get to the other dot, how much do I have to go up or down? Nothing, right? I don't go up or down at all, so I'd have a 0 on the top. How much do I have to go left or right? I've got to go 1. Should it be a positive 1 or a negative 1? It is a negative 1 because I'm moving to the left 1. If you're going to the left, that's going to be negative. All right, what is that? What's 0 divided by negative 1? It is 0. So this has a 0 slope. Think about it. This is flat line, right? Think about it if this is a hill, and you want to tell me how steep that hill is. How steep is that hill? It's not steep at all. It is 0 steep, right? So let's write this down. Let's put a note right here next to this problem. Horizontal lines have a slope of 0. Sometimes this is also called no slope. And that kind of makes sense, right? If we're talking about how steep a line is, and it's flat, it's not steep at all, no slope at all would be 0. Okay, make sure you got this right here written down there because it's really important and something that kids forget a lot. So if you see any horizontal line, you don't even have to count, right? You just say 0 is your answer. You don't have to try to figure anything out there. All right. You guys may be able to guess where I'm going next because that horizontal line, 8 right here, is our vertical line, so we're probably going to need to know something about that as well. Kind of, but what we're going to call it is going to be a lot different. So we're still looking at this like we did the last problem. So Peyton, you want to use the top one or the bottom one here? All right, so we'll use the bottom. All right, same thing we've been doing. Change in y over change in x, which is my rise over run, up or down, left or right. So how much do I have to go up or down to get to the other point? If I start right here at the bottom. 2. And is that positive 2 or negative 2? Up is going to be positive 2. How much do I have to go to the left or right after that? None at all, so that's 0. Now, 2 divided by 0, can you do it? If you type it into your calculator, it would tell you undefined, although you can't use calculator right now. But, or it would tell you error is what it would say. But you can't divide by 0. 0 divided by a number is okay, but you cannot divide a number by 0. Zeros cannot be on the bottom. So, what we call this is undefined. So let's think again about what it means to have a slope of a line. Slope tells you how steep a line is, right? So if we're thinking about a line, if it's flat, it has a 0 slope. As it goes up, my slope, the number for slope is going to get higher, right? It might be 1/2. That might be 1. This might be 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to go up, up, up. It could be a million, gazillion, a trillion. Eventually, there's no more numbers to talk about it, right? We don't use infinity. We say it's so steep that it's undefined. Think about a cliff. If somebody asks you how steep an actual cliff is, right? It's vertical. There's no number that you can use to talk about how steep that is. It's as steep as you could possibly be, so we have to call it undefined, right? But horizontal is 0. It's no slope at all. 0 means none. Flat, right? So, so let's make ourselves another note here. Vertical lines have an undefined slope. And so if you see another vertical line, you don't even have to count or look at anything. It's just undefined. Okay, questions? Students last year with Ms. Ball? Yep. Okay. All right. So, right now, what I want you to do is try to do as many as you can from this worksheet. Okay, we're going to take about 10 minutes or so because I want you to practice with it a little bit. I'll be around to help if you need some help. Okay, let's look at these. You probably haven't had, you may not have had a chance to get through all of them, but you should have had a chance to look at most of them by now. So let's see, we did 1 and 2. All right, for 3. Easton, what did you get for number 3? 1/2 is correct for number 3. So if you don't have 1/2, make sure you got that. If you have -1 divided by -2, that is still a positive 1/2, right? Let's see, Vince, what'd you get for number 4? -5/4 is correct for number 4. Okay, so if you have, negative, this is how negatives work, -5/4 and 5/-4, or writing the negative out front, like, of the whole fraction, those are all equal to each other. So when you have a negative, you can put it in the top or the bottom or out front. Answer choice-wise, it's usually written like this. It's usually written with that negative out front, but you can put it in either place. You just can't put the negative in both places. Here. Yeah. Okay? Questions on 4? Okay. All right. 5 we did together, it was 0. Jada, what did you get for number 6? 4/1 and 4/1. What is 4/1? What is 4 divided by 1? 4. So we would just write 4 as our answer here. Although technically it is correct to have 4/1, it just looks better if we go ahead and divide that and just get 4. Makes us look like we know what we're doing a little better there. For 7, Owen, what did you get for 7? What? I do not think that is right. Okay? 4/2 sounds better, except for I think that's going to reduce. Because you got to go up or down first. So you got to go down 4 if you start at this point, right? So that's -4 over to the right 2, so that'd be +2. And what is -4 divided by 2? -2. So -2, go ahead and reduce that there. Oh, and you just did your left or right first. You got to be careful with it. Okay? Questions? All right, I want you to look at that front page. What can you tell me about all the lines that have negative slopes? Well, they all have dots. Yeah, but just look at the ones that have negative slopes. So 7 had a negative slope. Well, sorry. 7 had a negative slope. 4 had a negative slope. 2 had a negative slope. They're all going down, right? So if I have a line that has a negative slope, it is going to look like from left to right that it's going down. Okay? So 1, I can tell this is going to be a positive slope. 3 is a positive slope. 6 is a positive slope because they all go up from left to right. So let's think about this on the next page here. All right, so let's do this before we even answer the questions. 9, positive, negative, 0, undefined. Which one? Positive, because it's going up from left to right. What about 10? Negative. 11, positive. 12, negative. 13, 0. 14, positive. You got to think left to right. It's going up. 15, undefined. 16, negative. So one other thing you can do is you can kind of ignore the signs and just put the positive or negative on at the end. In fact, sometimes I just teach it that way. So, like for number 9, there's a point right here and a point right here. So if you just ignore the signs altogether, so that is 8 that you have to go up and 3 that you have to go left or right. So if you do 8 over 3, right, because it's got to be up or down first, 3 on the bottom, then I just know the answer is going to be positive because that line's going up from left to right. I could do the same thing over here even whenever it's negative. So like here's a point and here's a point for this one. Actually, I could use that one there. I'm going to use these bigger ones up. So if I think about how much I have to go down and then to the right, just ignore signs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right here. And 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. So it's 6 over 4, which reduces to 3 over 2. But since the line's decreasing from left to right, it's going down, I know that's got to be negative. So my answer is negative 3 over 2. So you can ignore the signs until the end, but just don't forget to think about that for this, okay? All right, questions? All right. If you haven't gotten to those last ones, I want you to finish that part for your assignment. We need to look at the tables real quick also. So look at that table worksheet that we've got. And I'm going to go back so I can pull up that one. Okay, so from a table, I could graph these points and figure out what the slope is the way we just did that, right? But that's going to take a long time if I've got to graph all these points, and then I have to look at what the slope is. And I got to have graph paper, and sometimes the numbers might be too big to fit on my graph paper, and it may just be a pain. So let's think about what we do. It's the same thing for this as it was for the last one. We are doing change in y over change in x. So I can look at what is happening whenever I go from 5 to 7. What's happening when I go from 5 to 7? I go up 2, right? What happens when I go from 0 to 3? Up 3. This right-hand side is my change in y, because there's my y column, right? The left-hand side is my change in x. So it's 2/3. And you can see it's still doing the same thing here. Right here, you're just going up by 3. So it doesn't really matter which points you pick. It's the same thing for the whole graph. So your slope here is just 2/3 for that. Okay, questions about that? There are going to be a few, there's a few where they don't go up by like standard amounts, but we're going to see it doesn't really matter, okay? Questions about that problem? Okay, let's look at, if it'll click the right thing here, so let's look at number 3. So here, again, change in y over change in x. So we're looking at what's happening to our y. What's happening this time? I'm going down 3. Really every time right here, right? What's happening on the right-hand side? Add 1. So, my change in y is down 3, negative 3. My change in x is a positive 1. What is negative 3 divided by positive 1? Negative 3. Negative divided by positive is going to give you a negative. So your slope for that would be negative 3. Okay, questions? All right, now let's look at, I think it's on the back side where things start to get crazy. All right, let's look at 9. 9 is where things start to get a little bit crazy. Because from negative 8 to 2, what has happened there? It's up 10. But from 2 to 7, what happened? It went up 5. And 7 to 17, that'd be 10, right? 17 to 22, 22 to 37, 15. And when we get some of these larger numbers, if you need a calculator to check it, you can. So they are all different, but look over here on the left-hand side. From negative 2 to 0, what did you do? Plus 2. So that would be 10 over 2. What's 10 over 2? 5. Okay? Right here, 0 to 1, that's 1. So that would be, for that section, it would be 5 over 1, which is also 5, right? This is a plus 2, so that's 10 over 2, still 5, right? This is a plus 1, which is 5 over 1, still a 5. Right here is a plus 3, so that would be 15 over 3. What is 15 over 3? 5. So even though it looks like it's going up by different amounts, it's because the x-axis is also going up by different amounts. And when you divide, you're getting the same number each time. If you don't get the same number each time, this is not linear, and we can't talk about the slope, which I don't think is going to happen on this worksheet. Okay? Questions? Okay, let's look at one more here before we, why is it not letting me scroll? Oh, because I've not clicked the right thing. All right, let's look at 13. Oh, 13, weird. From 5 to 5, you went up 0, right? All of these are 0. On the right-hand side, what are we going up by each time? 1. So what is my slope for this one? It's not undefined. It is change in y over change in x. So I have to put the right side, that's my change in y on the top. I have to put the change in x on bottom. What's 0 divided by 1? It is 0. This is something you really need to know. 0 over a number is okay. A number over 0, no way. You cannot divide by 0, but if the 0's in the top, you just get 0. Okay? All right, now, look at 14 real quick, and we'll be done with the notes here. Why won't it let me scroll over? I must zoom back out because it won't let me scroll over. Okay. So, number 14. Here we went up by 1, 1, 1, 1. This actually goes up by 6 here. But it doesn't matter if that goes up by 6. What do my x's change by? Nothing. Alright, zeros the whole time. So I'm going to have 1 over 0 for most of these. I'm also going to get 6 over 0, but it doesn't matter. What do I get when I've got the 0 on the bottom? This is undefined. So, your assignment tonight for me is to finish this table worksheet and this graph worksheet. Okay? So you should almost have the graph worksheet done. You got a few left on the table worksheet to do. So have those done for me, and I'll check those tomorrow. Okay? Questions? All right, let me give everybody a white.